For if one is remembered by a friend, one is never truly gone.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Greetings from the galaxy far, far away. This is the Legacy of Star Wars podcast brought to you by Fandom Empire. I am your host, Johnny, and it's a pleasure to be here with you whenever you're listening to us. If you're listening to us live in the YouTube recording studio or on Facebook, it's Tuesday nights. It's time to talk Star Wars. As you can see, obviously, right in front of you, we got a lot to talk about. So I'm excited for tonight's show. There's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. A lot of stuff I'm actually genuinely excited-ish for. And we'll talk about it, of course, as we go along through the evening. And joining me, as always, of course, are my co-pilots, my generals. Sean, how you doing tonight?
I still sound like shit 1 week later. I can talk, though. Like, I don't have to feel like I need to take a bunch of steroids in order to get words out of my mouth. So that's a plus. Just wicked head cold. The fluctuating temperatures are not helping. Like, they're always bad in Canada around this time, but they're really bad this year. Don't worry, global warming's totally not a thing. But anyways, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to talk about topics that other people aren't excited to talk about. No, first of all, hats off to the three of you. Oh man, I went and spoiled who else is here. I didn't mean to do that. But
you didn't, because he was actually there, so it still would have worked until you said that you spoiled it, in which case you spoiled it by saying you spoiled it because you hadn't actually spoiled it before.
I am so fucking lost right now. But I just big shout out to Johnny and Randy and Tommy B for doing the Return of the Jedi watch along. I got to roughly right about where Palpatine is fondling the lightsaber, if you will, while it's sitting beside him, and then sadly kids interrupted, and that was it for me. But thank you guys for doing that, and I guess we can announce right out of the gate that our next watch along in March is going to be Solo, a Star Wars movie. Which I haven't watched with Johnny since 2018. In fact, I haven't watched it since 2018. So I'm excited for that.
It's definitely going to be something. I too have. Well, I haven't watched it at all since that night. I have not rewatched it ever since opening night in the theater. So it'll be an interesting experience getting to rewatch it for the first time with you guys. Second time for us, of course, since we were obviously there opening night. And, first time with the community at large. It's exciting. Randy, how about you? How are you doing tonight?
I'm not doing too bad. I like how you said you were excited, and then you were like, ish. I just like, yeah, we all know what you're not excited about talking about. But no, I think getting
well,
to watch Solo
actually, you'd think that, but no, that's not what I was referring to.
Okay.
That's a whole different kettle of fish.
He's a scourge, Randy. He's already a scourge.
No. We'll get to my issues later.
But no, I'm excited we're going to get to watch Solo next month. I've actually watched it a few different times, so it'll be interesting to see your reactions since it's been so long since you two have actually watched it.
See that? Look at you now. You're giving out the spoilers because I hadn't introduced him yet. But of course, obviously, joining us again for the second week in a row, Tommy. How you doing tonight?
I'm hanging in there. No day, no dollar. How about you?
I'm hanging on. Hanging on.
I don't know about y'all, but Sean is saying he sounds like shit. But He just sounds like he does every other day to me.
Wow. Okay.
This fucking guy wants to take me on in trivia, clearly. I can't breathe out of either nostril. You are.
Dude, seriously, are you okay? You just sound like you do every other time. I don't get it.
I think that's you right now, not Tommy.
No, this is me, right?
You had to go and ruin a good moment, didn't you? Why am I the one?
I don't
am the
know.
host of this show. Why am I the face not there? Oh, brother, it's gonna be one of those nights, I guess, huh?
So what's our first topic?
Well, I think you are well aware of what our first topic is, since it's the only one you will be joining us for. And of course, there's been a lot of news come out about this. We've talked about it at length, and of course, we'll talk about it more as we get more and more information about it. But some more details about the Mandalorian and Grogu title, not yet fully confirmed, but presumptively still that, and will likely stay that. It's been announced that they early, in fact, it has been said which tax credits and tax incentives they will be receiving for the product, which they're filming in California, which I don't think we filmed in California since the Forest of Endor, have we?
That would be a negative, sir. Basically, almost everything you see on Disney Plus not named Andor has been filmed.
I meant for film. For film.
Oh man. Then
For a Star
probably
Wars film, yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. But you know what this means? We're gonna need a whole lot of stagecraft.
What do you mean? This movie is going to take place on Endor. But there you go.
Grogu versus the Ewoks.
Oh God,
Grogu
might try and
kicked
eat an
Ewok's
Ewok.
ass.
Grogu might try and eat an Ewok.
Tasty.
As you can see, these are some of the, I assume just some of the tax credits that the Mandalorian, but this is a tax listing for films in California due to receive tax credits. So that's a big number. Even in the non-independent category, that is a big number compared especially to everything else. I mean, it's not even the only Disney live action filming in California. And it's 3.5 times higher.
Hello, pizza.
Not
quite.
Like an old school. Like, is that an actual landline?
It
Yes.
might be. Oh my
That is an
god.
actual landline.
Oh my god!
Wow. I could use one out here. Actually, I got a terrible cell signal. Yeah, so it is a massive tax break for them. It it gives them more incentive to stay in California rather than take off over to London, which they love to do for these things, or even Australia at times. But the biggest thing here is remember that they are trying to make this movie for significantly less than what they made the sequels for. This was going to be a lower budget movie. We're talking about something that instead of having a ballooned $200 to $300 million budget like the last Indiana Jones got, which is just ridiculous. That was never going to work out for them. They're from what I understand, they're trying to make the film for about $100 to $125 million. Well, guess what? You might have just had almost 20% of your film paid for. And, it's huge for them. It also lets you know that this thing is going to begin filming quite soon. They're not giving these things out for things that aren't going to start filming for a year and a half. So that rumored April, May filming date, I think they're going to stick to that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting number. It's 6.5% of the entire tax budget of the entire amount being given out by the state of California in this year. It's ridiculous. I don't.
I guess we know why the cost of living is so high in California. It's Mandalorian and Grogu.
It's also an interesting number based on the time frame. I don't know the really, we don't have the filming times for the other productions and how long they plan to film in states, but that's close to $7 million a month. That's a very big number for a tax credit, and I don't know.
I mean, the tax credit's cool. Like, obviously, we're leading with that because that's the headline. Obviously, when you're saving $21 million on a $125 million budget, which is where they're expected to be at compared to, say, $275 million, big difference, right? One's a drop in the water and the other one's a significant amount. Obviously, none of that includes marketing. I know people try to say that it does. It doesn't. Marketing budget separate.
That's entirely separate budget.
Correct. I can't tell you how many times we've talked about that on this channel over various different projects. But Deadline is now reporting that the Mandalorian Grogu will film for 92 days. And it really does seem like this film is going to come out May 22nd, 2026. Which is somewhat surprising, knowing that they're going to be filming this thing soon, because I'm so used to and hey, there's still time for it to all go to hell. But I'm so used to Star Wars films starting up, shutting down, delay, that it seems like this is actually tangible and
Why May 22nd?
Well, I think they intend
Memorial Day weekend.
Might be.
I mean, I would assume that's probably Memorial Day weekend.
Well, that would make sense.
One way to find out.
We have
calendar.
Yeah, we have this movie in May, and then it's expected, anyways, that Rey movie will come out in December of the same year. So,
I mean, May 22nd. Yeah, that is definitely Memorial Day weekend because the last Monday is the 25th.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Started the summer movie season right there.
So it makes sense. And let's be honest, it's still 2 years out, which to me is a good thing because it means we're actually taking our time here. How many times have we seen, not just in Star Wars, but in cinema in general over the last, 15 to 20 years, where they'll announce a project and it'll be a year after production. Like you film and then a year later it's coming out. This is a full 2 years. Actually, I guess since from the time we announced it'd be closer to 2.5 years. On top of which, I think we're much further along in production on top of that. So I'd say by the time we factor in all the writing time, which again, I still maintain most of it was likely done under the guise of being the season of the series. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the true testament of that will be when we see the writing credits for this. There's going to be a lot of names on that list if this was for an entire season of the series that's been sort of truncated down into one film, which I think is certainly the right decision, to include the credits for all the writers for the season of the TV that had been written. So I think that'll be the true tell of how much of this is already done and how much of it isn't. Now, granted, there may be a lot of writers who choose to not receive credit, I guess, in lieu of payment. So, I mean, Disney might throw a giant wad of cash to a bunch of writers to, forego the actual credit. But it's going to be interesting to see as we get closer because I like this because it is so far out. There's so much time to get it right. And that's not something we do very often, especially in light of what more we know about this film and what we've learned.
I'll say this, not to be negative, Nancy. I will remain skeptical about this film being any good for a couple of reasons. Number one, you mentioned it. You're taking what was intended to be a season of TV trimming it down into a movie, and then probably adding in stuff that has happened recently, Ahsoka and Mando 3, and how those two projects were received. You can add some stuff from them into the movie where you might not have been planning to do that before. But I got to tell you, the way they've gone about this is, I don't want to say unethical, but it's definitely not normal. And I want it to be really, really good. Here's the thing. I don't know if it's going to be. And that's a shame, because I think when you're writing a movie, it needs to be a movie, not a truncated season. And I hope they took the time to go back and, have pick ideas out that they were going to do for that season, but shape it as a movie rather than try to, crunch it down into one. And then the other thing that's alarming to me, on honestly a really high level, is the fact that, I seen this test, this thing that was on social media, and I tried it myself this weekend, Sunday actually, and it said, go back and watch the first 2 episodes of Mandalorian season 1, and go back and watch the first 2 episodes of Mandalorian season 3, and you tell me the difference. And the tone of that show has changed so much. It started off as this gritty outlaw show that Baby Yoda just happened to be in it at the end. Focused on Mando, feeling very much like the original trilogy, but even grittier, I would say, to a very Disney-fied television show. And that's not me hating, that's me being honest. I think they were bang on. I did it. Jade and I watched 4 episodes, and it's not like, and I never even really thought about it that way. But after watching them back to back to back to back, or, with minor breaks, I got to tell you guys, season 1, the tone, the feel, the way it's shot, the writing, the fact that it had time to be properly developed and it was what it was intended to be, it just blows it out of the water. Like, you can tell there's too many cooks in the kitchen in season 3, and I'm worried that the movie is going to be no different. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they look back at it, take a look at season 1 and go, this is the tone we need. But then you get the titles of Mandalorian and Grogu, and I go, not a good start.
Yeah, trust me, we're all like kind of like Mandalorian Grogu. Please change it, just please, just something else, anything else. But I think, looking at just as the start of the project and the budget and things like that, at least Favreau knows, since he's going to be directing, understands what it takes to create something fairly decent on a similar budget. Because I mean, look at Iron Man. He was about 130 to 140 million for the budget for that, and it was actually really well done. But of course, also think about it. This is in Filoni's wheelhouse, with the fact that now he gets to sit there and make the decisions on what really is going to end up going into this film. So I'm going to have to, I'm going to say positive here and feel like Filoni's going to do his job, do it well, and he's going to bring in elements that are going to be part of the story, that are going to help set up everything he's planning by the time we get his movie. Because we know that Din and Grogu will be a part of that, that series of movies. Because depending on how big of a big bad he's got planned, it could end up being a trilogy by itself. You never know. So I'm kind of gonna just kind of hang my hat out there and just be like, in Filoni we trust at this point, and just let him do his thing. Just let him cook and see what he can give us.
I'm all for, giving them their space to do it, but I still have to sort of take that this is still Disney. This is still, this is still the same corporate structure that brought us the sequel trilogy. And they allowed that to turn into a giant mishmash of fuckery. And I don't even having Filoni in his seat, as we said it time and again, he's the Kevin Feige of the Star Wars universe now. Even having him in this seat now still sort of is worrisome, because Kevin already had that seat. Kevin came in the seat when Disney bought Marvel. So he was already there. And Dave wasn't. Dave is new in this seat. He still has to. There is somebody ahead of him on the corporate ladder. Kevin never had that. He was the guy. He was the one sitting in the Disney boardrooms and the Disney studios, in the corporate meetings, saying this is what Marvel needs. This is the budget. This is all of those things. And he was the one having those discussions with Iger and everybody else at corporate Disney. Dave's not going to be that guy. That's still Kathleen Kennedy. And I have faith in her as a producer, because she has a history as a producer. It's a very, very good one. But her abilities to play the corporate game have left much to be desired. And hopefully this is the turning point. But I have to see it to believe it.
Tommy, how about you, man? Like you and I have covered a lot of Star Wars over the years on different platforms, different channels, for different groups of people, including ourselves. And I think Johnny's point about the sequels are right. We'll have to do it in a different episode, but I have this weird relationship with The Last Jedi now. Not that I love the film, but just there's a technical side of that they don't even attempt to try on the other films. But like, it's one mishmash of fuckery, like Johnny said. And how often do we see them do one thing wrong and it's not received exactly how they want, and they hit the brakes and go and try to change things, i.e. The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a stream about the sequel trilogy, right? But I know that we've all had our plenty share of criticism toward it. But the one thing I will say, and we've talked about this on channel several times before, when I previously did a list of my top scenes in the franchise, there were quite a few of them on there that were from the sequel trilogy, particularly The Last Jedi. I'm not going to say that I particularly like The Last Jedi as a movie, but I sure as hell liked a lot of the scenes that were in the movie. With that in mind, Mandalorian Grogu, the product as it is, it's not something I asked for. I hope they do a good job. I always hope they do a good job. I would have preferred a season of The Mandalorian. That challenge to go back and watch the first couple episodes, then watch a couple episodes season 3, sounds like a good challenge, honestly. My mind goes to the kids. Everyone, Baby Yoda, oh, you got Baby Yoda, and everyone be all going gaga over Baby Yoda, Grogu. And that's why I think we have observed this show have that significant amount of a shift. Unfortunately, I think that there's been a lot of good stuff that has come out of the series. I've enjoyed the plot. I've really enjoyed giving Bo-Katan a nice role with Katie Sackhoff. Not everyone feels that way. But just because some folks don't like where the narrative went or where the tone of the show went, I feel like we should throw that actress and that character down the drain. But like we said before, if something doesn't necessarily go the way we want it to go, well, if history repeats itself, everything might just do a total 180.
Before we move off this topic and outro Tommy for the night, I just want to ask you all this. So the scheduling in terms of Fantastic Four and in terms of The Mandalorian Grogu simply means
forget season 2 of The Last of Us.
Yeah, that too. Although I think I heard some stuff about that. I don't want to dive too much into that. I don't want to spoil anything.
If you've played the game, you know.
I haven't. I haven't. So
I'm not
really,
speaking to you. I'm speaking to the masses. If you've played the game, you know. But if you haven't, then you don't know.
Yeah.
And you're setting yourself up for an experience you experienced about 10 years ago on another series of popular fame that he also featured in. Coincidence?
Oh god, no, not that bad. Jeez, bloody hell.
Let's not go there now.
You killed her. Oh my god. Anyway, let me ask you guys this: the fact that Pedro Pascal, it seems like there's a 99% chance he's not going to be in very much of the movie, if any of it, physically, but obviously will be providing his voice. Does that lessen the experience for you guys at all? And the second part of that, should the other performers actually performing as Mando, Din Djarin, get more credit than what they've gotten? I know they've started to change that in season 3 to give the two fellas, John Wayne's grandson, I can't remember the other guy's name, more credit for what they've been doing with the role. But come on, they're going to market this as Pedro Pascal is in it, but like, where do you guys fall with that? Does it bother you that he's really not going to be there? And do the other guys deserve more credit than what they've gotten?
Yes. If they're going to do a movie, he ought to be in it, and he ought to play a good role in it. I'm not saying that he needs to be having the helmet off 50%, 75% of the time or anything like that. But if they're having a movie, they ought to bring out the big guns, bring out the guy who they say is Din Djarin.
They can't. That's the thing.
I know.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of how much he's blown up over the years, I mean, the dude just won the SAG award for The Last of Us. So it's like, it's one of those things where he's winning awards, he's getting more noticed, he's getting bigger roles. He's in such high demand that I think if he is on set for the day, the shoots when, Din doesn't have his helmet on, I think that's fine. I think that's all we can hope for at this point. Obviously, the guys who are physically embodying him while he's providing the voice, yes, they should get more credit just because they've got his mannerisms down. They've really, brought the physicality of the role has been pretty good. So it's not like they're not doing stunts and things like that. So it's one of those things where now we're at the point where we have to understand that the most we're probably going to get out of him is of essentially a voice acting role. And I mean, we got to take what we can get. And especially considering, I mean, it's at least they're not trying to totally recast him and bring him someone completely different in there. At least we're going to still get his voice. It's better than nothing. I mean, would I like to see him in the suit the entire time? Of course, but I don't think that's realistic right now.
Simply put, for me, to the first part of that, do I care if Pedro is the guy in the suit? Not at all. BFD. I don't care. I really don't. Not a little. Because it's not the person in the suit that is important to me. It's not. Because it's a character that is in a suit. It is a character that is, you never see an inch of their skin unless he takes the mask off. As long as if he does take the mask off in the film, it's Pedro's face. I don't care about the rest of the time who's wearing the suit. Because that character has always been about the voice. It's Pedro's voice that is most important to that character. And yes, they have been fairly uniform in the mannerisms and the way that he walks and the way that he moves around and goes through combat. But those are all less important than the voice. And in this instance, that's all that matters to me. Like it's to me, it's no different than David Prowse and James Earl Jones. And that's what it comes down to me, is that Pedro is the voice of Din Djarin. He doesn't need to be the body of Din Djarin unless the mask comes off. If he takes off the helmet, then yes, absolutely, he needs to be there. And obviously he will be, because it'd be ridiculous for him not to be, or they just don't take the mask off. And quite frankly, I don't care if he takes the mask off. I don't need to see his face to enjoy this any more or any less. I'm not a swooning person. I'm not grossly in love with Pedro that I just want to stare at his face. Like I'm in this for everything else. I'm in it for the story. And Pedro's face is not a part of that story to me. So whether or not he keeps the mask on or takes the mask off, I don't care. Do the people wearing the suit deserve more credit? Absolutely. Again, it goes back to David Prowse. He deserved more credit than he got for a long time. And it sort of took the con circuit to get him sort of the respect that he deserved for being the body of Darth Vader, to really embrace that, and absolutely, I think that the guys inside the suit deserve more credit, because they are an important part of that. Just like, David Prowse was to James Earl Jones. They were two important parts of the same character. And these people need that level of, respect. It's like, on this channel, obviously, Halloween is a huge part of that. It's no different than the guys wearing the Michael Myers mask. They all have attained a certain degree of fame and notoriety based on being Michael Myers, or based on being Jason Voorhees in other franchise, obviously in Friday the 13th franchise. Like, they deserve their flowers 110%, and they don't get enough credit for that. And not even from the Star Wars community, which I think is sad. And I'll admit, I'm one of them. I have no idea who's under the suit. And that's because it's not a big deal to Disney. It's not a big deal to Star Wars. It's not a big deal to the company to make these guys more prominent in the media. And they absolutely should be. And just treating them as stunt doubles is absolutely disrespectful to what they bring to the product.
I mean, I definitely can't disagree with you there. For me, as long as it helps the story, I don't mind when Din's helmet comes off. But like you, as long as it's Pedro's voice, I'll be pretty happy.
Yep. All right, guys. Are we good? Is there anything else we need to go over for this?
Nope.
Anything else anyone wants to add to this? No?
Maybe Tommy will come back next week, and him and Randy can talk about Bad Batch for a bit, and you and I will take a break and go use the washroom or something. Not together. Not that there's a problem with that.
That would be awkward, seeing as how we're in two different cities, over an hour apart.
Goodness.
That's
Dicks.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing this isn't back in we're both in the studio together days, because that comment would have been very awkward.
All right, guys. Well, I am gonna bounce.
You know what, Tommy? Just send me an IM, and we can go back and forth about the first 2 episodes on our own. Screw these guys.
Well,
no, we'll give you your time
tomorrow, right?
Yeah, very true.
All right. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Thanks for being with us, Tommy. Anything you want to plug? Tell them where they can find you.
Nope.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Tommy. And you will, I'm sure, be seeing Tommy's face again in the near future right here on this channel. All right, guys, it's time to get to the meat and potatoes here. We are working on a time-ish crunch tonight because real life, that's a thing. And so
if someone wants to make it not a thing for a few days, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Some more hours in the day would be lovely, but unfortunately that's way above my pay grade. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, and that is last Wednesday, about 12 hours or so after we finished watching Return of the Jedi, it was reported, completely unknown to any of us, that this was even in production, that it was even being worked on. During the Nintendo Direct, it was announced that Battlefront 1 and Battlefront 2 would be coming to modern consoles very soon. And by that, I mean 2 weeks from now, I believe is the date. Early March, March something.
Yeah, definitely early March. It shocked me because I was just on Twitter and all of a sudden I went, wait, what? And I went and I Googled it and I'm like, holy shit. And I just shared it. And then Sean reacted immediately after I shared the article.
It definitely caught us all off guard in the chat, that's for sure. I did not expect that at a Nintendo Direct on top of everything else. March 14th. March 14th is the date for that. So, Randy, you just told us your initial reactions on. You saw it in the chat. You sent to Randy. I noticed conveniently you didn't call him a liar. What was your immediate response when you saw the message from Randy?
This song played in my head, but for a different reason than what it normally does. Enough of the myths. Enough of the lies. 10 years of slander. 10 years of stories about me apparently getting my ass kicked, which it happened, to be fair, happened, and Johnny was definitely better at Conquest. But once we started playing with the adapted rules and we were heroes for the entire thing, and our teams that were like 900 people deep, I seem to remember different results than Johnny does. So rather
Let's
than
both be
trying
real.
to remember from like, geez, I guess we would have been playing this 20 years ago almost. Rather than try to remember from then and the 10 years of slander I've taken since, it's time to play the game.
Well, let's be honest. As good as we both were by the time we stopped playing that, it was your brother that was kicking both of our asses on a routine basis.
He doesn't count, nor does he need a Eagle Boost.
I'm just going to be real. By the time we stopped playing that, we were the ones getting our asses kicked and trying to figure out how to stop the child from beating us at this game. It's cautious optimism. Because, as Tommy pointed out in the pre-call, this is Asper Media. And they are good, but not great.
See, I think they have a flawless track record with games that they've released in terms of Star Wars games. It's the big one that hasn't gotten released that they got removed from that's the real problem in a lot of fans' eyes, and honestly, rightfully so.
I think the really big problem that I am most afraid of is that they're tinkering with perfection. And instead of just making basically a direct ported remaster remake, that they're tinkering in this thing at its core. They're adding things to it. And I'm all for the addition of 64-player multiplayer. That I don't actually have an issue with. I'm good with that because it's just expanding the multiplayer to the capabilities of the modern era. That's fine. It's any other changes under the hood that they're making. That scares me a lot. And I don't like adding in the DLC stuff that came after. Fine, whatever. It's the same code. It's the same game. Whatever. This is an entirely different era where the DLC was basically on the disc already. You just had to unlock it and finish it. So I'm not concerned with that because it's still everything's peachy. I am a little concerned with the fact that this releases in 2 weeks and we've still sort of seen very little of it from that perspective. I'm concerned that this was announced less than a month before its release date. I could keep going. I am concerned about a lot of things, but the thing I'm most concerned about is the price tag. And I don't like the price I'm going to have to pay for this game, if I'm being perfectly honest. I will state that if we didn't have plans for this game on a content level, I wouldn't be buying it. Like, to me, this is a game that you're not totally ground up remaking, and you're charging a price that is it's a price that's too high for the product being given, I think, for me personally. When I can go and buy a game like Helldivers for less than this game, there's a problem. I paid less on Power World than this game. I can buy modern era titles for less than this game. I don't like that. I do not like it one bit.
Trust me, I can understand that, and I respect that. Just because you're right, it's an older game. Obviously, they're playing off everybody's nostalgia, which Aspire tends to do. Is like bring us content from stuff that's from many years back. I mean, I even got Jedi Knight 2 and Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy because of them, and so yeah, I get it. I get that part. But the fun part is this is one of the best at least with Battlefront 2, you got one of the best Star Wars games. And it's finally coming to current gen consoles where it's a brand new audience that gets to experience it, not just the people who used to play it and bitch, piss, and moan about what Battlefront 2 was at the beginning of its life cycle, the new one at the beginning of its life cycle compared to what it is now. But this gives everybody what they wanted to begin with. It gives it all back to them. So you're going to get people on the nostalgia. You're going to get these new players who are going to be like, wow, this is really cool. Why don't they do more of this? So we'll see. If it sells really well, I mean, eventually you're going to see it discounted because it's already sold what they were expecting it to. So you'll eventually be able to see it for like $20. Well, 20 US. I don't know. Again, with the conversion rate, I know for you guys, you're paying $100 when I'm paying 70. So
it is already the listed price on we looked this up last week. It is $42 and some odd cents before tax on PlayStation and $40 and some odd cents on Xbox. That is with the 10% discount currently applying to pre-orders, not 20 like you get in the US. So thanks for that, by the way. But I'm not happy about that. The price I pay, I'm gonna play the game worse because I paid more for it.
No, the under the hood, the under the hood.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all valid.
It took me too long to get the image together.
Okay.
But honestly, I think that's 40 Canadian, right? Roughly.
$42.29 on PlayStation with the 10%.
You know what? I'm okay with that price tag because most new games we're paying $100 for, and you can talk about Buddy World and Kitty this and Pig that, and I don't know what the hell you're playing these days, man. I know you.
Just two of the highest selling games in North America.
Awesome for them. You know what? I'm sure it hits a demo that they're pleased with. I used to be a diehard gamer. I'm not anymore. I want stuff that makes me happy. I have very little time to play video games. I have played this right here twice since getting it. Twice. Not because I didn't like it. I enjoyed it. I don't have fucking time. So if I don't have time, I want the nostalgia. Give me the nostalgia of all the times I would whip Johnny's ass in Star Wars Battlefront 2, and he would, tell me that it didn't happen and tell our audiences over the years that it didn't happen. $40 is a reasonable price for one reason and one reason only. It's online compatible. If it was just the campaign, or if you could just play split screen like with Jedi Academy, unless you have it on Switch, like Jedi Knight Outcast. What was the other one, Randy? You need another one. I fucking own them too. Even
talking about the Jedi Academy.
Yeah. None of those games have online capability, with the exception of Academy on Switch, and I don't even know if that's still up or not. The fact that we can play this game online, hopefully with all the modes that we should be able to play it online with, like Conquest, that to me is worth $40. So I'm not mad about that price tag. If you were to take that away, though, this is a $10 purchase, if I'm being honest.
I mean, another big concern for me is that as I'm looking, I pull up the IGN article where we're going, is the lack of variety. There's one map for Battlefront. Battlefront 2 only has 4. And none of them are Mustafar. None of them are the Death Star.
That could change, though. That's stuff that they can... You know what? The Death Star wasn't even a big map back then anyway. What are the maps they are doing for 2?
Based on this list, for 1, you have Jabba's Palace. Battlefront 2 has Cloud City, the Renvar Harbor. I don't even remember that map. Yep. The Renbar Citadel, again, I don't remember that. And the arena on Yavin 4.
Interesting. I think they'll add to it simply because some of the better maps in those games are Mustafar, are the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. I remember Utapau. I remember we would play that a bunch. So I think, give it time, but I'm not promising they're not going to charge more money for any of it either.
And that's another problem.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, I'm with you on that one. That's all games.
Microtransactions suck.
Yeah, 100%.
I have no issue with them when they add content. Like, I don't mind DLC. Like, I don't mind season passes for games that bring new content. Like WWE, I'm a yearly. I buy the season pass every year because it brings new content. It brings new talent to the roster. It brings new moves to the roster, new things to the stuff.
Someone should tell CM Punk he has to be scanned to be in the game.
He already has been.
Oh, so his whole friggin' social media thing was just a work, basically?
I don't know what he said on social media.
He did announce that he's in the game.
Yeah,
he's part of the season pass.
He's the headliner for the season for the 4th DLC pack. I think him and Jade Cargill are the 4th DLC pack.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They just announced.
So I'm all but guaranteeing he has been scanned. He was probably scanned. Probably if I had to bet, I would say one of those random Raws he showed up to was because he was getting scanned. Yeah.
Gotcha.
That is my guess.
And there's some unknown regions for y'all people.
But it just, that lack of content is concerning now that I see it and look at it. 4 maps. This is a game that, like we said, it's been out for 20 years. You don't need to recreate assets for these games.
Think about it this way. At some point, you're going to be here, and we can still stream me kicking your ass on the old mat split screen on a big TV. So, I mean, either way, and I know you're trying to find a way to not allow this facade that you've kept up for a decade to end, but my friend, it is over.
Brother, I'm in my mid-30s. I can handle losing at video games. I have the ultimate excuse. I'm old. I don't have the timing I used to have.
I'm older than you and have 3 kids.
I'm older than you both. I don't want to hear it.
Right?
Turning 46 this year.
Reflexes,
Jesus.
they go, and the eyesight's not as good as it used to be, and
my reflexes are still pretty good. It's just after I have the reflex, it's like, oh, I wasn't supposed to move that way. Okay.
It'll be great until I'm squinting at the screen trying to see the characters that I'm supposed to see, because this is graphics from 20 years ago, and I'm looking at it on a modern day screen.
Another great map, speaking about that game, is Magito. It was
was a good one.
So I don't believe they're only going to keep it at 4 maps. Specifically the 4 that you like, even the Battlefront 1 map, I thought for sure it would be Cloud City because that was a big hit on that one.
I think that's why they put it in Battlefront 2, right? Because it was in both games.
I don't know if it's the same map or not. I can't remember. It's been too long, but Yeah, we'll see what happens, but my guess is they'll put out more content. Although if they're relying on Asper to get out the content, maybe don't hold your breath.
I mean, another thing that pisses me off about that though is that it still has the campaigns. There's a lot of planets in the campaigns that aren't in multiplayer right now, and that's ridiculous because you obviously have the assets for the campaign to have these maps. Why are they not in a multiplayer? And if it turns out that it's because, well, that's a DLC pack, I'm just gonna wash my hands and be done with it.
They might just give it for free, or they might be rushing it out quicker than they intended to. Who knows? But I'd love to say that I wouldn't buy the DLC packs. It just depends on how much it costs. It's going to be $5 for the rest of the maps. Then take my or 8 or 9 Canadian. Take my $8 or $9, and you can go fuck yourself for the the shady marketing. But yeah, I mean,
if it plays, like, if it lives up to nostalgia and still plays well, then okay, you'll probably begrudgingly get the cash. But if it doesn't play well, if it doesn't hit the nostalgia the way that it should, I am much more likely to just pull out my Xbox and re-download the version that's still there that I have in my vault, or install the game on Steam where it's sitting in my collection. Like, I have options that aren't that if they drop the ball.
Randy, you have any thoughts on the Battlefront 2 here?
Um,
or the 2 Battlefronts?
Honestly, I mean, at this point, let's just see what they do. As long as it plays well when it first comes out and there's a really good response, they're gonna release more maps for it. It makes sense. Or go through the campaign like old school days and unlock stuff that way. You don't know. I mean, anything's possible at this point. I'm excited to get to play it again and actually potentially play with others for a change instead of by myself like I always did. So it'll be a new experience for me altogether. You guys will wipe the floor with me, no doubt. But yeah, I'm excited for it. Let's just kind of see what they do, and hopefully it hits all the right notes so that we can just enjoy the ride while it's still there.
Yeah, I mean that's all fair. That's all well and good. All right, let's move on. We are pressing our time here much more than I thought we would. Well, let's be honest, that all tends to happen when we do these shows. So, all right, last news of the day. Sean, I'm going to turn this over to you. We have more Acolyte news.
Yeah, so we have the potential and most likely release date seems to be June the 5th, which is interesting because it sounds like House of the Dragon has moved up their season 2 from August to June. So those two are likely going to go head to head the same way that House of the Dragon went head to head with Andor and Lord of the Rings. That being said, we've discussed on this show about them doing some marketing with the Phantom Menace and getting some more asses in the seat for that reason. Well, it sounds like one of the things they might be doing, not that this is confirmed, but it's a rumor that is out there, is the same thing they did right before Andor came out, but on a larger scale. Before Andor came out, they put Rogue One back in theaters for 1 weekend. That was it. 1 weekend and done. And attached to that, you got a preview of Andor, not just a trailer, but rather like it was like the first 10 or 12 minutes of an episode. And, well, that would be a way to get asses in seats is, maybe you do the trailer ended or you show the first 10 or 12 minutes or 10 or 12 random minutes of the first episode of the Acolyte with the Phantom Menace. Marketing wise, it's smart. It makes me excited. The other bit that's out there in terms of the Acolyte fellas is I know they keep advertising that the show's 100 years before the Phantom Menace, but it sounds like that the main story might only take place 60 years before the Phantom Menace. And then that's a game changer in terms of who can be involved.
It certainly opens the door to a lot more characters.
You mentioned young Dooku a few weeks ago, and like that's a legitimate possibility now.
Well, I think that was when we first discussed the idea of 60 years, right? Because this has sort of been around for a few weeks, and I'm pretty sure that's exactly why it came up, was it opens up a lot more doors for characters to be there, like, Padawan Dooku and Obviously, Yoda's in play even 100 years back, but it puts Grievous on the table. Grievous. I mean, I guess he's a droid; he'd be on the table at any point. But it puts
Not
Palpatine on the table.
in
Obviously,
Plagueis. Yeah.
I mean, I think Plagueis would probably be on the table 100 years ago, and I
Yeah,
think
for
that
sure.
would have been his story. He would have been the main villain 100 years ago. But 60 years, it certainly puts Palpatine as the second in the rule of two, and I think that would be interesting to see his sort of plotting and machinations as a younger individual. Maybe even so far as seeing his sort of corruption and fall to becoming the apprentice. So
The interesting thing there is in old canon, I don't know if you know this, in the old canon, this is no longer canon anymore. But as we've seen, they like to take the old canon and redo stuff with it in the new canon. Plagueis was alive when the Phantom Menace started. Plagueis dies during the Phantom Menace. We don't see it on screen, but if you read the Plagueis novel, that's when he dies. Palpatine kills him in his office during the Phantom Menace, and yes, he's in fact asleep. They definitely play fast and loose with the whole rule of two thing, and I think we're going to see a lot of that in the series.
I mean, I think that's sort of a good thing to a degree, because it allows sort of those those goings on behind the scenes. Because even when they've sort of played with the rule of two, it's been to betterment of the story. Like it's the apprentice's apprentice sort of thing for the most part, and their attempts to usurp the throne, and obviously none were successful during the era we're most familiar with. But it's certainly an interesting thing, because the rule of two has always been sort of flexible in a certain degree, where you'd always have the master, but the apprentice who always wanted to usurp the power for themselves would then find an apprentice and find that. And it goes back all the way to the dawn of the rule of two. I mean, you saw that in the Bane trilogy with his first apprentice, finding an apprentice herself and attempting to defeat him. So, it's there's a lot more that can be done with this story that I'm excited for, but I'm also sort of afraid of some of the other things that you could get. Because I mean, you have to, at this point, you can't have Dooku already be jaded if he's in the story. Yeah, this would have to be him still at his peak of beliefs. This could, of course, start his questioning of the Jedi, certainly. But the real interesting one is Yoda. And I would hope that maybe we can use this series as sort of an opportunity to, I don't want to say start answering the questions about Yoda and his species, which I do think need to be done, especially with Grogu in the current canon and being a big part of it. You need to start answering some fans' questions about this species. And I think this is certainly a good opportunity to do that, being so far in the past, that I'm intrigued with that possibility.
Well, and you can get more, maybe potential discussions between Yoda and Yaddle, since
Yeah.
Yaddle was probably roughly, which should be, I don't know if she's on the Jedi Council yet, but I would assume, maybe a Jedi Knight similar to Yoda, because I don't know how long ago Yoda became the Grand Master. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of potential for growth of the lore, and to give us a glimpse into just some of the headspace of some of these characters that we normally would never be privy to, even in books that they haven't even gone back that far yet for some of these characters. I think we have a potential for just a wealth of lore that's going to really help push Star Wars even further.
Yeah, it's a completely untapped era. Star Wars always sort of went from the Old Republic era right to the original trilogy. There was a very little in between. I mean, I'd argue that probably the Plagueis novel is probably the only one that really is in that sort of time frame of any consequence. So it'll certainly be interesting to see them finally playing in a new era. And that is the most exciting thing for me.
Yeah, I don't think people should marry themselves to seeing young Dooku or other characters.
Oh, they'll be
Yoda's the given, right? Like Yoda is going to pop up
Right.
at some point. You can't not have him. We've already seen footage of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, so. But I think in the long run, you have a chance to play in the sandbox in a slightly, and like Johnny was alluding to there, an area where there hasn't been much play. And I think you can do it with all new characters. And I think it's important to remember that this show, in terms of how they're viewing it, they view it as the production quality level of Andor, but with Jedi. And I think that has a chance to be a huge hit.
It absolutely does. It's very exciting. Obviously, we'll talk a lot more about it in the coming weeks and months as we gear up for this, and obviously as it airs, it will be probably the most important part of the show for the run, for its run. So we'll come back to this. We'll talk about it more. But we need to move on. We need to move forward. We still have one more thing that we need to do.
Unless you guys want to push it to next week, we can do that if time is short.
I would say that, even though I'm not a fan of the game that Randy wants to talk about, it's probably fair to not have Randy on a 5-minute time constraint for his game. So maybe, Randy, you can at least preview what game you're going to talk
We did. We can say this. We changed it. If you watched the show 2 weeks ago, you know that Randy picked his game. In the interim 2 weeks since then, we've all forgotten what that is, and nobody went back and checked the mod to see what it was that he picked. So Randy just elected to pick a new game, and that is what he did. So I guess this sort of works in a way, because the audience had no idea what we were going to be talking about in Game of the Week. We did, obviously. So Randy, for the second time, tell us your new choice for Game of the Week, which we will talk about next week.
So I decided to do something. I'm gonna look at it as we're gonna do it a little differently. So I went and I chose probably one of the, I wouldn't say worst games, Star Wars games, but it's not exactly a great Star Wars game. So next week we'll be getting into Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasai or Kasi or whatever that Casey, how that is, whatever the hell you want to pronounce it as. However, we're gonna put a twist on it. We're actually gonna, instead of sharing not just our memories with it, we're going to talk about what they did right and ways they could have improved it, and what it would look like if they actually decided to do a remake today, and how they could really make it worth our time versus the heaping pile of dog shit that it was back then. So that should be a fun discussion.
Randy, your definition of the word "fun" concerns me greatly. I do not think that word means what I think you think it means, as a wise man once said.
Well, I mean, obviously, if we really want Sean to get under your skin some more, he could always play that one track again, over and over and over.
Well, if my choice is playing the game in question for the Game of the Week or listening to that song on repeat, God help me, I'd probably choose the song.
Oh, God.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm choking. Hey, before we get out of here, I wanted to show you guys this really quickly. Wanted to end the show with it. It's funny because Johnny was talking about what happened with the sequel trilogy, and we've been talking about posters a little bit lately too. And I seen this online, and thought I would share it with you guys, and just what could have been. Yeah. Oh, my heart hurts a little.
That's actually a really good poster.
It's fan-fucking-tastic. That has Struzan.
Kudos to the fan who created that.
Absolutely. Take us home, Johnny.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's show. Obviously, we're sort of rushing this out here as we unfortunately got a little too exuberant and effusive talking about our previous topics. But let's be honest, that's what we do. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, head on down below, click the like, click the thumbs up button, leave a comment. down below. Tell us something. I don't know. Tell us what your favorite Star Wars is. Who's your favorite character? Just tell us something. Interact with us. Make us feel special. And help us defeat the evil algorithm. Head over to the YouTube channel proper and check out our other stuff. Tonight in Haddonfield, Mondays. Welcome to the Geek Side. Usually on Wednesday, but life is a thing, and
it'll be like an every other week thing going forward. I don't know if I can do the 10 o'clock starts anymore, which conflicts with guys that want to watch Dynamite while it's live. But the next morning is killing me, fellas. So it's not going anywhere. But I think if you're going to see it going forward, it'll probably be at a 9 o'clock time slot, and for those that want to make it.
So that's that. And of course, keep your eyes open. Here in the future is coming soon to a small screen near you. It will be the Legacy of Smallville. I did it that time. It didn't even almost say Supernatural.
Hey, no, you didn't. And you know what? We had a few people ask about that this past week. And thank you for asking about that. And the update we can give you is this. We have basically completed graphics. Started to work on show notes. We're going to actually reach out to Johnny and a couple other people to see what early episodes that they can come on. The first couple will just be Jade and I, but we're going to be recording episodes in March and releasing episodes in March. So it's right around the corner.
Well, there you have it. Keep your eyes open for that. If you are a fan of Smallville, or if you just want to, watch this content, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and, just helps us out. And of course, if you want to contribute on another level, head on over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/Fandom Empire, where you can contribute at whatever level you are comfortable with. All right, guys. No, there's no groundwork. There's no groundwork. I'm a grown man. If I lose, I lose. It doesn't change what happened 20 years ago. Yeah. So, like I said, thanks everybody. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. So, I was trying to think of a funny way to get to Cloud City and saying goodbye. So, I'll just say,
nuts.
wow.
Damn.
Oh, like the ice cream guy of Cloud City, it's time for us to go. We'll see you next week, and may the Force be with you all.
For if one is remembered by a friend, one is never truly gone.